Good morning, everyone. It is 4:38 in the morning here in western Pennsylvania. If you are out there in blogland somewhere else, this might be your afternoon or who knows what time. We are having a prayer vigil here at Camp Allegheny, which is the Salvation Army's camp in western Pennsylvania Division. As part of my vigil, I have been knitting these little guys, which don't look like much right now, but they will be sleeves for a songbook and a Bible. They're made out of lopi. I have taken some pictures of this, that, and the other thing. So I did take some pictures of the songbook and the Bible so that you can see them. They're both burgundy and have leather covers, but other than that are relatively unimpressive because the book's a book and it has a cover and stuff inside. As I mentioned in the last entry, or the entry before, whichever it was, this is the beginning of a new set of traditions for our Clown Brigade. Well, actually, everything's a new set of traditions. We just started it a year ago, so I wonder if it's a tradition when you decide it's going to be a tradition, or if it's a tradition after you've done it a couple of times. Well, if it's a tradition of when you decide that it's a tradition, this will be the first time that we've given out a Bible and a songbook. If we have to do it a couple of times, then we're going to have to wait for a couple more clowns before it's a tradition. If it's not a tradition yet, then, well, sorry, Jim, it's just a funny thing that we're doing. But you'll get a couple of neat little books, and they'll have their own little sleeve to be in. So, even if it's not a tradition, it is interesting. Also, you get to be the first one in the tradition. So, congratulations, Jim. If you're not part of the tradition, you're the beginning of the tradition. That might even be better. Well, this is our prayer room here. We have all these little stations set up, and generally a couple of folks in here are praying, and they go from station to station. It happens to be me during the 4 o'clock hour, and so there's no one else in the room. I have been in here for 3 or 4 hours by this point, but since this is a place that's bathed in prayer, I wanted to make the things for Jim's songbooks in that environment, which is not something that you get to do often. So when Jim gets these will be special. Much like the chemo caps that we pray over whenever we're knitting them, or the prayer shawls. Which brings me back to chemo caps. I haven't been able to knit very many chemo caps. Actually, I haven't been able to knit a great deal of much. My knitting is pretty much, at this point, limited to Shetland-style knitting, where I can hold the one needle in a belt. That way I don't have to hold on to both of the needles, and I can sort of work one with this little finger here and this little, Incidentally, one of the kids in my Sunday school called this the world's worst hand puppet. That is pretty bad, but I digress. Anyway, it's been happy times out here and so on and so forth. As far as other things going, we had a smashing practice on Wednesday. I guess you got to see the video. That's all that I can think of. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time with a bunch of irrelevant stuff. I know this is the first time for that. Well, you all be happy out there in blogland. Be safe out there, and keep your stick on the ice.